And then at the end of the month, we got a commitment, sort of a little variable by team, but basically for a second month. So with that time, we were able to make some relatively significant changes in that product version. And some of the improvements, other products emulated that process and again achieved, relatively significant improvements. But, the key point is the last sort of sub-bullet there where it says immature and ad hoc processes. I talked about threat modeling. I remember, a manager from the Windows Security Group, there's a guy I actually work for now, telling me, just being furious with how unactionable, imprecise the threat modeling guidance we were able to give to product teams was. I remember trying to make people into penetration testers who really had no background in security other than the half-day class that Michael Howard and Jason Garms taught. And they did some good work, but people went off down rat holes. So it was immature, it was ad hoc, it was inefficient, but it was what we had to do at the time. Post the security push, post that 2-month period, we stood up a team that started to look what we call internally security science. Basically, how do we find new classes of vulnerabilities and build tools to remove them? How do we, and that started to pay off. And then we also did what we called at the time the security audit. Basically, how good a job did we do? What's left? How close are we to have actually having made the product secure or more secure? And those were sort of the background. We did that in 2002. We replicated it for other groups and products 2002, 2003. By the end of 2003, we felt like A, security wasn't going to go away anytime soon, and B, we sort of had some ideas about what we needed to do. And so that led us to be able to say, okay, let's build a process. And the objective was to get early in the process, which we were starting to do with the security process pushes, but they were still basically sort of pre-beta phase. So let's get earlier and let's make a real difference on a sustained basis. And that was the origin of the Security Development Lifecycle. We went to senior levels of the company, the CEO and his direct reports. We gave a fairly short presentation. These are the things we want to do. This is how the process is going to work. This is how we'll operate it at a high level. We want your commitment that essentially enterprise or internet products will have to go through this process forever. And it wasn't a big dramatic. It wasn't a big dramatic meeting. I mean, basically, we were there for like 30, 40, 45 minutes, and came out with the mandate for the Security Development Lifecycle. And the reason was because all this stuff was fresh in people's mind, and they took the commitment seriously. They understood what bad things could happen, and we had accomplished enough with our ad hoc processes so that the executive management felt like we could probably do what we said we were going to do. So that led to the SDL. This is our sort of standard chart. You'll see these again in a minute. And basically what we've done with the SDL is to identify specific requirements associated with each of the phases of the Microsoft product development cycle, and say, to product groups, you need to do this at this point in your development cycle. I'll get to the thises in more detail in the context of simplified, assuming I get to those slides. So I won't belabor that now. But the key points are that there are specific activities associated with each phase. They're mandatory. There's education associated with the process, and we update it. Talk about updating in a couple of minutes. So that's the classic SDL. I call it the classic SDL because about a year ago we introduced the SDL for Agile, and the problem there was, okay, so I'm doing 2-week sprints. I'm doing 4-week sprints. How do I get all of that SDL goo into that short a period of time? So what one of the folks in our team, Brian Sullivan, did was to look hard at the SDL and how Agile works. Said, okay, I'll break them down. Some things we'll say teams have to do every sprint, and most of those will be heavily tool-based, so you run a tool basically as part of your build process or something. Some of them are one time. If I have to have a compiler version, I'll do that, and then that basically lasts forever until a new version of the tool comes out. And then what we call the bucket, and the bucket is basically things you can delay and pick which sprint you do, but you've got to refill the bucket, refresh the bucket every 6 months. So that allows us to take the more expensive requirements and spread them out over the sprints of an Agile process. And that's gotten good acceptance internally from the teams that are doing Agile. Okay, good time to talk about the book. If you've read the SDL book, there's a speculation on Agile that Michael Howard wrote. Not blaming Michael. I mean, that's what we knew. That Michael Howard wrote when we were writing the book, late 2005, early 2006. Doesn't work. Not what we do. Interesting history. Interesting idea of what you might have tried, what we did try, but it didn't stand the test of time. So that's a context where the book will tell you something, then you look at that and say, how can that work? And the answer is it didn't. We moved beyond it, but we didn't do book 1.1. I alluded to the loop on the process diagram. 2004, we went live in July of 2004 with a first iteration that was pretty rough. Basically, a Word document based on a slight extrapolation of some of the things we'd been doing in security pushes. And then we said, well, that'll get us out there and we can make the process live July 1st, 2004. And then from then on, we started doing 6-month interval updates. Basically, responses to new threats, new classes of applications. We added privacy requirements. We added online service requirements. New techniques. There are just very limited elements of fuzzing in the initial version of the SDL. By 2005, 2006, fuzzing was super important. So a lot of what we do today is about fuzzing. So just a lot of evolution, both as the attacks evolve and as the security tools evolve. Since October of 2007, we've gone to an annual update cycle, and that's mostly driven by the tool development requirements. We also built a regular cadence for the updates. So we'll start out with a call. Anybody want to propose requirements for the SDL, and then we'll do reviews of those with a core team. The core team will make its recommendations. They'll be reviewed, and then go to a beta period when we build tools for betas and get product teams to beta test the requirement and the tool, we get a beta feedback process, can kill a requirement at that time. If not, it goes live at the beginning of October of next year. We're at SDL version 5 now. 5.1 will go live October 1st of this year. How do we get trusted to do this? Every update we do receives what I refer to as broad review, which is, basically we make it available. We make sure we have contacts in every product team in the company, and then and we put the beta proposals on an internal website, and we solicit feedback. There's some especially thoughtful people, and we make sure we pay especially deep attention to the product group folks who who we know are going to have the most actionable, most useful feedback. We also get senior review, the requirements at key milestones before, at the start of beta and at release are provided to the groups of senior developers, testers, and program managers across the company for their review. So if somebody really didn't like something, we'd know it from a senior level. I review every requirement before it goes out as well, just to make sure that I know what's going on and believe it. In those reviews, we pay a lot of attention to things like tool false positives and level severity. The justification has to include security response center bulletins that you'd avoid. We talk about effort. How much work does it take to implement the new requirement? And we talk about talk about productivity. Basically, if tool is super good at finding vulnerabilities, but it has a false positive rate of 99%, it's probably not going to make the SDL. Referred to tooling, there are 3 classes of tools that we use. Okay, the problem finders, fuzzers, static analysis, configuration checking tools, what have you. Those sort of obvious. And then a second class, the automated tools to help track the compliance with the SDL. We have an internal website that we use for that. It's basically a line of business application. And then the third is for us, we have our security program managers that work with the teams to make sure they're complying and work with the teams to help them comply. And they have, they have sort of an administrative interface to the second tool to see what each team is doing. We started, as I say here, with only the problem finding tools and tracking on scraps of paper and Excel spreadsheets. And then as the process grew and some people asked us some questions like about statistics, we evolved the second and third. And they're all critical to our operation at this point. And the fact that you have to have all those and have them in sync is a major factor in going to the annual update cycle. Okay. So I'm told everybody on the planet has seen this slide. There was a reference to it at the dinner last night, but I had it in the deck, so I didn't pull it out. I really liked this one when I saw it. And so what we've done for organizations outside Microsoft is to release this thing that we call the simplified implementation of the SDL, that basically abstracts the SDL away from the Microsoft environment and provides generalized guidance for how organizations outside Microsoft can apply the SDL. And I want to try to come back